or episode or commentary on the road to 50 million. Oh, spectacular day today. I had a lot of fun on road to 50 million, and I'll tell you why. I interviewed a fellow for a podcast whose episode will be coming out in the end of, I think it's end of April, or the first part of April, April 4th, I think. Anyway, what a guy. He surprised me. He was 21 years old, and the language and learning that came from him was astounding. I was just really impressed, and I wouldn't have met him if I wasn't on the road to 50 million. And I want to meet you. I want to meet you and hear your stuff. He said he grew up in the projects, and there were 9 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, and that's quite a circus, obviously. And all of the difficulties associated with that, Section 8 housing, which in the United States means subsidized housing. And, he said they grew up just thinking this was a normal life and boiling water for a shower. And, he gave different examples. The thing that just really was exciting for me in terms of our purpose here to discover and serve with your gifts is he was talking about that. He feels like the things that he experienced educated him. In middle school and early high school, he started exploring personal development and made choices that I didn't make until my 50s. Made choices to look at life as an opportunity, made choices to discover how to serve. Was very big on talking about service and how that all fit into things. And he's on a mission. And his mission is to help young people. And, from my perspective, obviously he is young, 21. I have kids twice that old in their 40s. And so, he's a youngster to me, and he's helping young people to understand the choices they have and to make those choices in a positive way. And given the background that he had, it would have been easy to be a different way. And this shows the power of choice. I mean, there was nothing about his story or upbringing or magic that sort of magicked any of that stuff out of the way. He made individual choices to do what he's doing today. And he has his own podcast. He got himself licensed as a real estate person already, and so he's working on selling real estate because he believes. He told me he read Rich Dad, Poor Dad a couple of years ago, which would have been when he was 19, and he's already working on how to invest in real estate. So this is my road to 50 million. Like, I get to meet people who are committed to using their gifts, in his case, his experiences. And he didn't even think of them as challenges. His experiences taught him some things, and he's sharing. His goal is to share his 4 pillars, which was managing your mindset, learning about finances, he said, stuff that's not taught, entrepreneurship, because he believes everybody ought to have a business, and then investing, and in his case, it was real estate. Those 4 pillars. So you'll want to look for his, John Mendez was his name, and you'll want to look for that episode. It's episode 755. It'll be coming out in a few weeks. Stellar interview. I was both blown away and grateful. Blown away because of his youth and his wisdom, and grateful that we have that in the rising generation. So I was really excited about that, and that's a fruit of my road to 50 million. Now, part 2 is I want to meet you, because I know that some of you listening have stories, you have discoveries, and you have ways you want to serve. And I postulated for him, I said, so I define the ultimate life as, a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy that you get by serving and through divine gifts. And he wholeheartedly agreed, and he talked about service and gifts, and all the experiences that he has gone through were gifts also. So it was enlightening, and it was gratifying. So this is my invitation to you to reach out. I'd like to meet you. I'd like to understand, are you living the life you want right now? Are you living a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy where you love to get up and attack or ease into or lovingly caress every day? Do you feel like that about your life? And if you don't, you have to ask why. Why not? So often I get messages from either clients or people that I'm acquainted with And I'm always asking how they're doing, what's going on, just because that's what I do, because I care. And so much, the answer comes back in terms of externalities that happen to them that make their life unhappy. This happened, this financial thing, this person did that money thing, that business thing, that health thing, this illness thing. It's all focused outward. And I had a 21-year-old this morning telling me that it really comes from inside and it's all a choice. How interesting. Obviously, I agreed with him heartily and congratulated him on his wisdom. After we ended the podcast, I told him, I absolutely love where you are, love what you're teaching, and love who you're being. Said the real interesting opportunity for you is going to be when you're 26 or 31 or some other number. The worlds are going to fall apart around you, and you're going to wonder, and you're going to feel frustrated, maybe. Said the real light that you can bring is in those circumstances, when that happens, and it probably will, to stay true to these things you've taught us today. And that was just me and him talking afterwards, just because I know how life works, and it could be that that isn't true for him, but it is almost for everyone. So today's topic specifically is chemistry of anger. Chemistry of anger, and that was noticeably absent. I asked him, in fact, I said, someone could be angry or bitter or whatever from your circumstance. Why aren't you? And he talked about choices and making, a choice early on to study personal development and to read those things. And I was again and again both impressed and gratified, grateful for his language and understanding. So I want to talk about the other interview that I had today on my road to 50 million. And that was, I was a guest on someone else's podcast. And that podcast was about mental health. And this particular woman lives in Nanaimo over on the island of Vancouver Island, which is just west of the city of Vancouver in the Pacific. And Joy and I are planning on moving out to Vancouver Island this summer, in August, I think. And so she is in, I think, a city called Nanaimo, and that was near where we spent some time, a couple of weeks last summer. We spent a little time in a little town called Lanceville, which is just north of Nanaimo. But anyway, her podcast was about mental health, and she was so bubbly and excited and asked me all kinds of questions. And then I got a chance to review my own story and talked about, 52. I was 52, and I finally realized I had control of the levers of my life, including mental health. And that doesn't mean that I knew exactly what to do, because of course I didn't. But what I knew is I was going to take control, and I was going to try things until I found out what worked and not abdicate. That's so much what I see. I had a client some years ago who, the first announcement was that they had been on antidepressants for 20 years. And not that there's anything wrong with vitamins or other medication you might need on a permanent basis. But it was clear in our conversations, at least to start with, that this individual looked at that supplement as the be-all, end-all of managing this condition. And it may be, but it felt very much like abdicating all autonomy to that external solution. Now, I've struggled with depression and tried for decades, since I was a teenager, and it wrecked my life. If you've read Tightrope of Depression, you know. And here's the book. If you haven't read it, read it. This is the truth of what happened to me, what I went through. And it's not about anyone else's behavior. It's just what I experienced. And I didn't understand. I had the ability to control all that until I was in my 50s. So this particular podcast host was vibrant, and we discussed what I'd been through and the things that I have learned, just like that other fellow did on my show. And it was just fascinating and fabulous that there are so many people who are aching to help, to be of service. And she knows about my goal of 50 million, and she said, I'm going to help as much as I can. And she was excited. In fact, she was so excited, she wants to have me back perhaps in April, in a couple of months. So, and maybe we'll do that because she wants more story and she wants to help with the road to 50 million. So those examples I share with you because I want to invite you to consider your situation. Are you living your ultimate life? And if you're not, really and truly, why not? And are you ready to change it? This is your invitation. I'm offering all the help that I can to help 50 million people, to reach you, to help you understand you have control of your life, to help you understand you can create whatever you want. Happiness, prosperity, I listed as purpose, prosperity, and joy. Life purpose gives meaning every single day. It's what helps me fly out of bed in the morning. So that's the two events that took place for me today that I like sharing with you on my road to 50 million, because both of those are going to be opportunities for me to reach through sharing that one fellow's message, John's, and Queen Bee, her message. That was her name, Queen Bee something. I can't look it up right now because there'll be a big blank spot in our streaming, but Queen Bee something. And I loved her message, and both of those will help me reach my 50 million. Now, the chemistry of anger. I read a book called Anger Kills, and this was written by a doctor, and he had done the study of the neurotransmitters. Now, a few days ago, we talked about the neurochemistry of fear and what that does to us and how it holds us back, the effects of it, and what we believe, and that it all comes from belief. Anger is similar, but the chemistry is different. And this particular doctor's study showed the following. He followed some people for many years that, expressed significant anger. Now, we've all known people who seem to live at the edge of anger all the time, either in anger or almost, very close to triggered, and nothing is ever okay. Their general approach seems to be to find whatever's wrong with whatever's going on, all the time, anytime. Complain and be frustrated and angry, and it's always aimed outward, almost. Sometimes I was kind of the inverse of that, kind of like the reverse Flash. I was always angry at myself because I believed that I was flawed. But anyway, my point is, in the book, the study revealed that the chemistry of anger kills you. It kills you. So his study revealed that people who live with a lot of anger, and I don't remember the amount of minutes per day, but live in anger a lot, die several years earlier. Several years, 7 years earlier, I think. And the interesting thing is, besides that, that's a terrifying thought. You're going to chop 7 years off your life because you want to be angry all the time. Okay, another scary statistic was that there's a whole lot more illness in those who have a lot of anger in their lives. Now, none of that is surprising when you just think about how anger feels. Like if you're in a room or in a conversation with someone who's angry, it feels corrosive. The words are corrosive. The energy is corrosive. The spirit is corrosive. The gaze and the looks and the eye rolls and the negative stuff, it's all corrosive. Well, it turns out that's a mirror of the neurotransmitters. The chemistry in your bloodstream when you're angry is corrosive. It corrodes your internal plumbing, blood vessels and stomach and other things. It literally corrodes them, eats them up. And so then there's no surprise that they die. You die earlier, 7 years, I think was the number. But there's also, in addition to that, far lower quality of life. So leading up to that early death, there's a whole host of heightened medical problems, more of this and more of that, and this illness and that illness, and the obvious ones like ulcers and related things. But there were many that were a surprise to me. So the name of the book is Anger Kills. I don't remember the name of the doctor, but Anger Kills. So it's a book that I would recommend. It shocked me. I read it many years ago, and it just made me be completely aware of every time I'm allowing that chemistry in my bloodstream. Because like fear, that chemistry only comes when we believe a thought. And my friend and client, Dr. Mort Orman, says anger comes when you believe somebody's done something wrong, you believe that they are fully responsible and that they should pay for it. His thesis is those three things create the chemistry of anger. But whether it's exactly that or not, Anger kills. The chemistry of anger is corrosive. Now, that shouldn't come as a surprise. So let's talk for a minute about what to do with it. One of the things that happened to me was in one of the divorces that I had, and those of you that have followed the history know I was divorced 3 times before finding the angel I'm married to now 15 years ago, going on 16. And that one of the exes made some untrue accusations in the context of custody battles, and that made the court order me to take some anger management stuff. So I did, of course, because I was going to do whatever I needed to do to, see the kids and have custody and do whatever. And it was interesting because after it was 32 sessions, so it should have been 32 weeks. And after about 6 sessions, or maybe 7, the counselor, he'd asked me the whole story of what was going on, why I was there, and what the issues were, and everything else. And so he heard me, and I did that in the beginning. And then he, assumed that I was exaggerating or whatever. And so he just proceeded with the homework and assignments and the therapy sessions and so forth. And after about 6, he told me, yeah, this is not, you don't have anger issues. This is not right. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to complete them, but we're going to do 2 a week from now on so you can complete your 32 and twice as fast because, I dealt with this. He dealt with a lot of prison inmates and all kinds of people. And he said, it's clear to me this is not a valid judgment. So anyway, that was my own experience with anger management. I went through 32 sessions on the high-speed program. And it was grateful to understand and be exposed to the thoughts and feelings because that taught me a lot also. Here's what we do with anger. We either let it control us and we continue to blame, or we realize that we have control of all of our emotions, and then we simply don't allow that chemistry to come. The idea that somebody made you mad is nonsense, absolute and utter nonsense. You choose, and I choose, how we interpret every situation. I talked about tonight, I've got an LA Talk radio show, Christine Campbell-Rappin, and I can't wait. It's just in a couple of hours. And 2 weeks ago, I had Chris Dorris, and if you watched that one, if you haven't, you should. latalkradio.com, you should go watch those. Chris, and then last week was Jan Van Zant, and tonight we've got Christine, and we've got a good lineup for the next few weeks. Anyway, Chris talked about we have access to every one of our emotional states. All we have to do is create the thinking that produces that emotion. Well, if you can create the thinking that produces an emotion, you can uncreate it. So we know the chemistry of anger kills. We know that we're sovereign over our own lives and choices. We also know that no chemistry happens in our body until we believe a thought. So the place to start if you want to eliminate your anger is look at thinking. Are you blaming people? Are you choosing to be frustrated because reality isn't like you want? When we fight with reality, we lose every time. When we look at some situation, we blame somebody and think they should be punished. That is at least the beginning of, if not the whole substance, of creating the belief that brings anger. So the precise composition of the anger neurotransmitters, I don't know. But I know it involves cortisol and adrenaline and the others in huge quantities. And cortisol is corrosive. It's necessary for certain situations. But you have control. The analysis of anger isn't important. The fact that it kills you is interesting and hopefully frightening. The important thing from today, if you want to live a life of purpose and prosperity and joy, you can, and you can live a life without anger. My goal is to help 50 million people discover and choose to serve with their divine gifts. If I can help you, reach out. I'm here. My goal is 50 million, and I am going to get there. I can't wait to see you tomorrow on the road to 50.